because of the emergency. This governor still declared an emergency. Well, I'm not thinking
back, especially during the lockdowns and all that, if there was an inability, kind of like what the Anderson City Council does.
Right.
They all phone in. So if they're under the emergency order, they
Let's get it rolling. I got to get it over.
It's funny. Friday morning, you did that thing in front of my house. This is the funny thing. My son calls me. He says, "Dad, I need you to get newspapers. Everything you got for the day." Okay.
No, it was just included in the packet.
They had the babies. So first thing I do is go online, and so I just send a screenshot to all my kids. And
I usually
because it had my house. And see from reports from around the county, and so my son, here he is, having our grandson, and here we are on the foot.
I went to work Thursday, and you go back to the hotel, get storage from the car. I said, "It's my house. It's deserted." So I walked down to where the town hall was, and I walked down to Erie Street, and down 13th Erie Street, and I walked down. I was like, first I'm walking there. Now I saw the guy.
Another one in the story. If you just wait a while, I usually come out in my pajamas since I work from home. In my flannel pajamas.
I thought the town did a pretty good job.
I do what now?
There were some little tough. My mom lives off Ford Street.
So if you want to make a correction, addition, or
Probably do that. Pile all that snow on that corner. When you're coming out, that you can't see around that corner on the main street. That's the only bad.
They've done that forever. They used to pile it in my corner of the yard.
I'm going to tell you.
No, these arms are so wide that they just walk on it in.
If it didn't have the arms on it, you switched them. Maybe just leave it to the inside.
The inside, yeah.
Get you to do that. It probably costs us.
Oh, she owns it?
Yeah.
Oh, so we can move her chair out and give her my little room. Yeah. You want to move her chair out so we can get she's on Zoom?
Yeah.
Gary wants to move her chair out.
Yeah, Diana's chair.
Amherst keeps elbowing.
Yeah, this is tight.
I think it's on purpose.
All right. We're going to go ahead and get started. I'll call this meeting of the Madison County Council, February 8th, 2022 to order. Councilman Reese, would you mind leading us in prayer as we open?
Oh, gracious Father, we come to you this evening praying for you that you give us the strength and understanding to do your will. Father, we thank you for everyone that's here tonight, that travel abroad across this county and probably far beyond this county. We ask you to take them home safely. We ask you also, Father, to put your arms around our first responders and all those who work so diligently for our county. Father, we ask you to give us the understanding, this council here, and the knowledge that we do the things that's pleasant in your eyesight. And we ask you these, man, in your name we pray. Amen.
So join me for the pledge. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Next, I would accept a motion for the approval of the minutes from the January 11th meeting. I'll move.
Right.
We have a motion and a second. Oh, yes. Is there any discussion about the minutes? All in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed? Okay, those pass. And just so we're all aware, Councilwoman Likens is joining us remotely tonight. So,
Hey, change that.
next, I would accept a motion for the approval of tonight's agenda.
Which one?
Tonight's agenda.
I got 2 or 3.
What's sitting in front of us right now?
So moved.
Okay, a motion by Councilman Emery, second by Councilman Steele. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye. Oh,
Councilman Gale, I noticed that they're in the transfers. I don't know if we're going to do it singly, but you got some transfers for raises. Can we move those with everybody else that comes up here and asks that, separate from the regular transfers? Some transfers are for raises.
Well, if the council chooses to, when we get to the transfers portion, we could handle them individually.
Okay, I just, before the agenda started, I wanted to know that.
Okay, I think we have a motion and a second to approve the agenda. All in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed? That motion carries. Under council president's comments tonight, at last month's meeting, there was some good discussion about the process in which the council uses or has been using kind of the past practice when it comes to salary ordinances. I had some discussion with our legal counsel after that meeting in the weeks following, just to make sure that we were doing our diligence to do things the appropriate way. Sometimes I think, we just rely on past practice, and it's good to question past practice and make sure that we are, in fact, doing things well. The advice I was given was simply that when we're dealing with pay issues, increasing pay for an employee, we do have the appropriation that we make. That is exempt. It is an ordinance, but it's exempt from the requirement of having 2 readings, so that can be done in 1 meeting. The salary ordinance, that has to be treated separately. The salary ordinance is not exempt, so therefore it would be a first reading the first time it's introduced, and then a second reading at the following meeting. The exception there is if it passes unanimously, it could be if there's a situation that would determine that would be appropriate. It could be passed unanimously at the first reading, but if it does not pass unanimously, even if it passes by a majority, that would still then go to the second reading at the next meeting. So I just wanted to clarify that, make sure that we were all on the same page there, and that's the process that we will continue to use from this point forward. So if there are any comments or questions, tonight will be a good test as we make sure we're following suit there. We can always have those discussions and fine-tune later if needed. So,
Councilman Gale, does
yes.
that include when we do an amendment to a salary ordinance, the same procedure?
Yes.
If it don't get to be unanimously, then you have to do a second reading.
Right.
Correct?
Right. Yeah. Okay.
I hate to be a pain.
Okay.
But when we are doing teams with live meetings, we need for the present council people to move up closer to your microphones, speak louder, so that it goes onto the digital record that is kept.
Okay. Thank you for that reminder. Rick, would you like to present the auditor's report?
I just had a couple numbers I wanted to share with you tonight, like I try to at every meeting. Basically, the main fund balances you operate from, I like to make sure you know where you're at on those. So we as of today, we're sitting in the general fund with $7,023,900. The public safety fund has $1,271,000 and change. The rainy day fund is sitting at $4,256,000. And a couple items I wanted to add to that. Keep in mind this year we borrowed money from the general fund, loaned it to the public safety fund to pay the sheriff's retirement fund for sheriff's department employees, which is usually paid in December, but we'll try to pay that the first year if we can. This allows for the cash flow to do that and get those investments 11 months earlier. So we try to do that. Keep in mind that before the end of the year, that $1.2 million needs paid back to the general fund by December 31st. Also, since there's a lot of public safety requests on the agenda tonight, I wanted to let you know that in January, I don't know if everybody got a copy of this or not, but I can give you the total. What was appropriated in January for the public safety fund was $989,672. So
What was that, Rick?
it's $989,672 has been appropriated out of that $1.2 $5 million that's available. So I just wanted to keep in mind, you have about $500,000 there is about what you have. So what you guys do with it's your business, but I just wanted to make sure you knew how much was appropriated last month.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Question. Rick, for in future reference, could we have a copy of your numbers and present it to all of us when you give us
Sure.
the numbers? Thank you.
Sure.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, next on the agenda would be the transfers. We have transfers from 4 different departments tonight. We could move forward as we did last meeting and have each office holder or department head present on these, or we could go with what we've done in the past as a mass transfer. Are there any thoughts on that?
I'd just like to, if Councilman Miguel, if we could, I know that there's some requests for transfers that I'm seeing on here that are for raises, and if we can put those with probably the other appropriations with the correct office holder and kind of do it at once, that way we're not proving stuff and then doing transfers, and it's somewhere for raises. I believe you probably see that, and I'm looking at it here.
Yeah, I'm seeing one that has one transfer.
There's a couple more here.
I see a transfer from the clerk's office that would be raises. The other 3 transfers I don't see as raises.
There should be, okay, well, yeah.
So
There's one.
Councilwoman Likens, can I just check to make sure you're hearing us and that we can hear you?
Yes, I am hearing you. Every once in a while there is a small interruption.
Okay.
If I need it repeated, I will request. Is that okay?
Yes, thank you. Okay, well, how about this? Would somebody want to make a motion on the 3 transfers that don't include pay raises, and then we could...
So moved.
Okay,
Second.
so we have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion on, this would be the assessor, prosecutor, and planning department?
Of course, I have a question.
Yes, sir.
We're just in the second month of the budget. Why we have so many transfers? I mean, I'm just I don't understand why we have so many transfers. I mean, just in the second month of the budget. And you know, I'm gonna say this. This has been pretty much a consistent thing on this council that we see transfers every month. But the first of the month, I'm just kind of leery, Mr. President, why we got so many, and we just did a budget.
I know that the planning department transfer, that's something that was an unexpected situation. So I think that would be why you're seeing a transfer on that one. The other 2, I'm not certain as to why those exist. Rick, do you know anything about those?
I don't know what the request is for the, was that other one a prosecutor's office request?
Prosecutor.
I'm not aware of what that is, but the assessor's office request is actually a request by our office to get it in a line that better identifies the item that they're working with. It's a rental, and it can be paid out of the line it's in, but we like it better defined, so that's our request.
So it's just cleaning up the accounting process.
Mr. President, I can speak to the planning department. Right now, their director, Brad Newman's out on medical leave, and they're uncertain of when he's going to be coming back. It's going to be an extended medical leave, to my understanding at best. They discussed this at the personnel committee the other night. So they are going to move over some of his salary line item over so that they can subcontract that out to a private sector company to take care of those duties so that our construction projects and things are not held up while he's gone.
Okay.
So that's the reason that one's coming up for us.
Chief Deputy Hanna, would you mind just giving us the rationale for this transfer?
So with our request, Council, it has to do with the fact that, we'll explain it sort of more thoroughly when we get to our new money request, but we're attempting to find ways to purchase the necessary equipment to onboard, obviously, the new employees that were granted in the last council meeting that require this specifically here is for 4 laptops, docking stations, all of that equipment that we need for the new employees that we're trying to find other ways. We're going to withdraw some of our new money requests given the balance of the public safety fund and so forth. So it's really just for equipment that we can purchase for the new employees.
Okay.
Mr. Hand, this is gonna be, so this is in tune with the new position?
Yes.
Is
Yeah.
this basically what you got approved for last month?
Well, it's
To purchase new equipment for those positions?
for those positions, yes.
Right, okay,
Yes.
thank you.
Yes.
Okay. Is there any other questions or discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed?
No.
Okay, that motion passes. Next, we would have the clerk, Olivia Pratt. Olivia, would you mind discussing your transfer request?
Hello, good evening. So this transfer request that's on here, let me get this open, is to give my 3 supervisors a small raise bump up. I believe that I have a lot of employees that deserve a raise. I'm well aware that that's not going to happen tonight, and I understand. But in terms of the transfer, it's coming out of my part-time line item that ever since we've gone to e-filing, we don't hire part-time file clerks anymore, so it's not a line item that, if you approve the transfer, I can promise you I'm not going to come back to put money back into that line.
So, Ms. Pratt, this is for some raises, but you just said that you're probably not gonna get those, so we're
The
getting.
new money request is
The
not
new
going to
money,
go through.
right.
I'm aware of that.
So some of your employees are gonna get a couple raises out of this? and
The 3
others aren't?
supervisors, the 3 supervisor positions that take
You
on a
feel
lot.
okay with that?
If,
That it's fair that your other employees are not getting raises? That's the only thing I'm trying to.
no, I don't think it's fair for some people to get more than others. But if the new money request is not going to go through, I don't have enough money in the budget to transfer raises to all of my employees, whereas my
I
supervisors take on a lot.
I just don't want to give some of your employees, I don't know, I haven't heard your request or you getting up here yet, but I don't want to approve 3 supervisors and no one else get raises. I don't like that. You understand what I'm saying? It's not fair.
I don't like it either. I'm aware that the new money request is not going through, but the transfer is coming
didn't
out
hear
of what's
anything about
already
that yet, so.
in my budget.
I just don't want to give certain people raises and not rest of them get it. You understand what I'm saying?
But
I think she understands that. Are there any other questions from the council? One thing I am noticing as we're trying to make sure we're doing things properly with the salary ordinance. So this is a transfer. It's not a new money request, but it would still affect the salary. I don't believe that we have a salary ordinance that was prepared for tonight for this particular transfer. So if we do the transfer tonight, we would then have to come back next month, correct, with the salary ordinance?
Yeah, you can't give a raise.
Right.
Until salary ordinance is.
Yeah, so,
The money can sit there, you just can't spend it.
yeah, so we see, I think there was a salary ordinance that was generated for all the new money requests, but I think we missed the this transfer. So again, that doesn't mean we couldn't appropriate this. We could do the transfer if we chose to tonight. It would just mean that the raises, best case scenario, would go into effect after next month's meeting if we were able to unanimously pass the salary ordinance. If we couldn't unanimously pass it next month, then it would go into the April meeting. So just so you're aware on your timeline there. Sorry, doing it the way that we've been advised makes it a little bit longer process. But
So we do have, for her request out of the general fund budget, we do have, the salary ordinance for that, right? You're just saying on the transfers we don't.
correct, just on the transfers we don't. Probably because it was a transfer, it got overlooked.
Do you want to let Ms. Pratt explain her, why she's up here, then it kind
No,
of goes in
let's-
sync with that?
Let's go along with the agenda and let's handle the transfer here. So,
Okay, can I make a motion? Motion, please.
sure.
I make a motion that, looking at everything in whole packet as I did, that we don't accept any raise until budget time.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion.
Roll call vote, please.
And a second. Is there any discussion on that?
And I will say, if I may, Councilman Gale, we gave a 3% raise across the board. And several of these departments, and I'm just going to go real quick in general, there's some statements made that we said no to public safety. Last year, the 2020 appropriations additional to the budget for the prosecutor general, we appropriated $152,969 and a penny. Prosecutor's public safety fund for their portion is $131,753.06, which is a total of $284,722.07. The sheriff out of the general fund was $32,842.53. The jail was $293,167.96, with a total of $326 and $10.49. We gave it 3% across the board. We're leaving some employees out. We're going to make a mess out of this. We're going to have other departments come in and ask for a raise. And we're giving, here we go, we're picking and choosing, but I just think it's the right thing to do. And we're the second month end of our budget. And I did talk to two counties that they do this. I understand we just got the public safety fund, but to appropriate money in the second month, I think it's safe for us, not to just drain this public safety fund just in case we have emergencies down the road. We're at 60% capacity already. I believe Mr. Gardner has said that. So I make that motion that we don't approve any more raises until budget time.
I'm not in favor of that. I don't think we want to lock our hands, tie ourselves up. I believe office holders can manage their own department. They know their people. They have to make those decisions. We manage the money. I will not vote with you.
Just as a matter of clarity here, pertaining to this particular transfer, would this be, I may have misread here, this would impact your chief deputy and your head bookkeeper.
And the election director.
And the election director. Okay, so those three positions are on the salary ordinance that was prepared for tonight. But there are a lot of other positions that are listed. So if we were to approve simply the transfer, then we could present this as a first reading but amend it prior to passing at
I don't know
the...
if we need to amend it. I think Todd already put the annual salaries in there based on the transfer.
That was just a three.
Yeah,
Okay.
you could, if you excluded any of those lines, you could approve it to leave the difference, right?
Sure, you did. On that ordinance, you can amend it on the floor.
Okay. Okay, great. Just wanted to make sure that we knew that for when we get to that point. Okay. So there is a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion on that?
Mr. President, if I may.
Yes.
I tend to agree with Councilman Steele on this, that to have a blanket policy that ties the hands of office holders to be able to move their funds to where they see fit and to give those raises where they see that they should go. I think that would be a mistake. I think it's important. We've told office holders for several years now to try to find money within their own budget to do these types of things, and that's what they're doing. They're bringing those before us and finding those monies within their own budgets to do that. The fact that we can't give every employee a raise, I think that we're missing a real opportunity to address the ones that we can address now and try to play catch up, for lack of a better term, at the next budget cycle for those that we can't now. The Public Safety Fund, by law, spells out exactly who and how and which departments we could spend that funding on.
You can't get that.
So we can't, for as far as public safety goes, we can't use public safety for other departments that aren't already being presented to us, or that were presented to us in the original packet. So I would encourage the council to think long and hard about not making a blanket policy like that and leave it to the hands of each office holder.
Councilman Riggs?
We've done blanket proposals like this before. And the reason why we did that is to kind of help control the spending. We had several raises done last year before the budget. Who keeps track of all that? Then on top of that, we don't know if they got an additional 2% on top of that when they got in the middle of the midstream of the budget. We need to do this because I had 2 people come up to me this week asking, are we going to get a raise? Are we going to get a raise? And that's not fair. And that's what our job is to do, is to keep an eye on the spending. This is spending. And it's not fair if we just, look guys, what month is this, February? So we're not even 2 months into February. And we're already doing raises. You guys did a great budget, so he reported in the paper. You guys did one of the greatest budgets come along since men started riding wagons. So what I'm getting at, why is it we need all these raises and we ain't even 2 months into the budget?
The raises that we have given to this point come from newly developed public safety money that we did not know that.
The 3% came from public money? 3%?
No, the raises that we have done this year. The 3% came from general fund money. That was part of the budget that we worked out.
Right.
Excuse me. The raises that we've done this year, what we did last month, came from public safety money. That is money we were not aware that we were going to have when we created the 22 budget. So that wasn't even a possibility to appropriate that money at that time.
I'm not raising the stink about the money. We got plenty of money to give everybody money. I'm not raising that stink. We got plenty of money to give them all money. I'm saying you got to stop giving these raises in between budget cycles. I understand. I mean, maybe I'm lost. Maybe you guys know something I don't know. But we just did a budget, and we're not even 2 months into 22. We're just in the first month and a day or two. How is it that we're so poor now that we got to come back here and get raises? I mean, you guys do what you want to do. You're going to do it anyway. But it just, I mean, if I'm a taxpayer, I'm going to be like, you know, he might have something to that. So I'll leave it alone. I mean, I think it's a great, I mean, we've been doing it. We got to stop this in between. But if so, let's stop doing the budget hearing and just do them as we come along. You can't have them both, because there's no way of keeping accountability to what's going on.
Councilman Miguel, may I add, the only concern I have, council, is, is if we got 60% of it going already. I had a conversation with Mr. Gardner and I asked him for some questions. And what happens if we approve this tonight? Let's say and I'm sure it probably will, but what are we going to do if we have an emergency? We're second month in, and say the sheriff's department or the courts or the prosecutor's office, and we have an emergency up there, the public safety, and we have none. We're going to go back and ask taxpayers for more money. I'm just saying I want to be cautious. I want to support this, but right now at the second month, that scares me. I'm just trying to be cautious. Because this is 4 unseen emergencies I'm looking at. If we drain the fund, then we're in trouble.
Mr. President, I'm looking at this and I'm listening and basically, I understand both Councilman Reese and Councilman Vaughn's concerns, but I sat in a meeting this morning that concerning Brad, our county planning person that's on sick leave, basically getting paid. And the new planning director, if we would have to go that route, would require an increase in pay that we would have to fund. If we approved your motion, it would even tie the hands of this council to approve a
expenditure
pending raise that we know we're going to have to deal with for a new planning director should Brad choose to retire. And I understand the concerns, but I also know that just as other council people have suggested, that we really can't just close the door on all raises until another time, because we are, when we're replacing people, and sometimes we're in a bidding war whether we can replace them for the same costs of the previous staff.
Okay, I was a little bit, Councilman, I was a little bit confusing, you said, because if we switch people, that salary ordinance is still there. That salary's still there. So you say we may need to pay more.
We may need to pay more to increase somebody else's salary to get a person. So I just to make that motion and us approve that would be somewhat counterproductive, because at the end of the day, we're going to have to make a new motion to change the motion that you just made. So I would have to speak not in favor of that motion.
So, Councilman Reese,
last comment. 2 years ago, I sat up here and asked for a raise for an African-American woman who was doing 2 jobs. She did 2 jobs. Some of you guys voted against it. African-American woman doing 2 jobs. And I fought like hell for 6 months to give her a raise. But you guys come in here and just zip, 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 zip. You ain't asking what additional they're going to be doing, anything to really quantify why they should be getting a raise. We just give it. But I sat here for, you remember Emery? You sat there, sat here for 6 months trying to get an African-American woman. She was doing 2 jobs. It felt like hell. So I'm just, you guys amaze me. You really amaze me. So do what you're going to do. It just really sickens me how I fall up here for that. But here it's okay. So do what you're going to do. That's the end. I end that, Mr. President.
All right. And I believe that Councilman Vaughn requested a roll call vote. Again, this is a motion not with regards to the clerk's office transfers right now. This is more of a blanket motion as to whether the council would approve any raises between now and budget time. So just to make sure we're clear, if you mind reading
Is it a motion to not?
yeah, I'm sorry. It was a motion to not allow us. So a vote for this motion would mean the council would not be able to do raises until budget time. A vote against would mean the council would retain that ability.
Could it be amended?
I suppose we could always pass a motion at a future meeting.
I mean, because you're going to have emergencies coming just like you're talking about. That's going to happen, and we understand that. Nobody here is so hard they don't understand things that we have to do as a county to keep it moving.
So let me change my motion to, if there's an emergency, don't approve no additional raises until budget unless it's an absolute emergency. So I'll change my motion. You go on second, Councilman.
Second.
Okay. Would you go ahead and lead us in a roll call?
Councilman Reese,
No. Oh, no, wait. What am I voting? I'd be so confused. I'm voting on,
the motion you just made.
yeah, yes.
Councilwoman Lighting.
Yeah.
Could you please repeat? I apologize, it is coming in and out.
Yes. So, Councilwoman Likens, the motion is to prevent the council from making raises until budget time. So a yes vote would be in favor of the council not being able to make those raises until budget time. A no vote would be against that.
Except emergencies, remember?
Except for emergencies. They did allow for emergencies.
Are we
No.
voting on the amendment?
Councilman
He
Alexander.
put forth a new motion, and that new motion was seconded.
Emery, she called you.
Alexander, she said.
I want clarity again on what I'm voting for. I'm not sure.
The motion was to prevent the council from being able to give raises with the exception of a situation that was an emergency. So a yes would prevent the council, a no would allow the council.
All right. I would vote no.
Councilman Steele,
No.
Councilman Emery,
No.
Councilman Vaughn,
Yes.
President Gale.
No. Okay, that motion fails. So now back to the transfer and the clerk's office.
Could I add,
Yes, sir.
could I add something? Councilman Reese did lobby on behalf of an individual, but I think the outcome of that was that person did get a raise.
6 months after.
But she did get a raise.
6 months after.
Okay, let's make sure we get back to the agenda here. The question now is with regards to the clerk's transfer. Is there a motion?
I think we voted
Both transfers.
Yes, the transfer is listed under the clerk's.
Can I ask one question, Councilman Gale?
Sure.
So we're going to approve this, the 3 of our employees getting raised, and I guess Ms. Pratt, I didn't hear before, just stated she's not going to get raises. Evidently she knows something I don't know. She feels like she's not going to get that other fast.
Okay.
Is that right? This is just for the 3 employees.
Well, the right now, this transfer would be for the appropriation, basically the transfer that would appropriate the funds into the line items for these 3 employees. That is what we're discussing right now.
You're looking for a motion?
Yes.
I'll move that we accept the transfers as requested by the clerk.
We have a motion to approve by Councilman Steele. Is there a second?
I'll second.
We have a second by Councilman
Roll
Alexander.
call vote, please.
Is there any discussion? Hearing none, a roll call has been requested.
Councilman Reeves,
No.
Councilwoman Likens,
Yes?
Councilman Alexander,
Yes.
Councilman Steele,
Yes?
Councilman Emery,
Yes.
Councilman Vaughn,
No.
President Gale.
Yes, so that motion carries.
Thank you.
So when we get later in the agenda, we'll discuss the salary ordinance, and then you'll have maybe a little more clarity at that point. Thank you. New money. We do have some new money requests. First is the prosecutor's office. Let's see here. And this one would be for the high-tech crime unit fund, which we heard from the prosecutor's office in December about. This is a grant that they received. We just would need to appropriate it for them to fully utilize that. Chief Deputy Hannah, would the Adult Protective Services Fund, that is the same, that would be a grant fund?
It's a separate new money appropriation, and that's from their state funding as well. Both of these new money requests involve state money that's already been deposited with the county.
Right, okay. So
It has been deposited, Mr. Hander?
Yes.
Mr. Hannah?
Yes. Yes, Councilman. Both the Adult Protective Services Fund and the High Tech Crime Unit Fund, their grant can kind of be used interchangeably, but they're really state appropriations, and both of those, it's just approving the expenditure of those funds.
How long is the grant for?
Well, again, it's a state appropriation as opposed to a grant, so it's a 3-year time period.
And 3 years?
Yeah.
So,
and this is just for this 1 year. We'll get about $300,000 every year.
So are you planning on, I guess if this is successful, are they gonna, is this something the general fund may have to pick up later?
No, and we explained this at the council meeting when we were talking about, it's not something that, if the state, there are 10 of these across the state of Indiana. If the state stopped appropriating that money, then we would actually go back to a model where the Indiana State Police is processing this evidence. So we're processing the evidence for a 5-county region. And if they stopped appropriating the money, nobody would be able to do that anymore. It would go back to the Indiana State Police. I mean, really, the state's paying for it one way or the other, but it's all a different thing. But either way, all I see is that we would actually be getting more money a year for this program as opposed to it ending altogether. I think there's one no vote on it in the Indiana House. So,
I'll make a motion that we approve the request from the prosecutor's office for the grants for the high-tech unit and adult protective services fund.
Okay, we have a motion to approve by Councilman Braun. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Councilman Reese. Any discussion?
Quick question. How much you got left remaining in your monies? How much money you have to spend?
Councilman, I'm not sure what fund I mean, as a prosecutor's office, we have a lot of funds.
You ain't lying. I'm talking about this right here, this high-tech crime.
Well, almost all of it. We haven't.
So it's all gone?
No, almost all of it's still there. Okay. Because we need you to appropriate it so we can spend it.
Okay. You know how much it is, though? Total.
How much was about $285,000. However, we already have staff members in place. So, other than that.
Oh, $285,000 left?
Right. No.
Remaining?
Councilman, it's about $285,000. So what it is the money that was deposited with the county is about $285,000. That pays for 2 salaries, that pays for group insurance, FICA, PERF, all of those things. It also pays for all the equipment that we'll need and all of those things. So other than starting to pay the salaries of the 2 employees that are in those positions, I don't think that we've expended any of those funds because we're waiting on the appropriation to do so.
Okay. So we have a motion and a second. If there's no other questions, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Those 2 requests are approved. Thank you. Next, in our packet was the clerk, general fund request for some raises. The clerk and I did have a conversation over the phone, and she agreed, seeing as how there's not a surplus of money significant enough in the general fund for raises, she agreed to withdraw that request. So next, in the new money request was Dr. Abbott, the coroner's office. And just as a reminder, there are two items here. The $49,852.09 was to reimburse his professional services fund from the transfer we did last month for him to be able to buy some equipment for the new electric cooler. The additional $25,390 and 47 cents. Dr. Abbott, would you like to speak to what that is?
Troy Abbott, Madison County Coroner. Had two requests. One of us for the 49, as we said, to replace the monies appropriate for the electric cooler. $25,390.47 was to recover part of the autopsies for 2021. We've already had some rollover from December and January already, and we've already spent $59,000 covering those months. So we're gonna be short quite a bit this year so far, unless this pandemic slows down, because we're still at an all-time high in deaths.
What, Dr. Abbott, what happened to the encumbrances we set aside in December?
I never got the money.
You never got it, or you didn't file the paper?
I filed it on the 20th and never got it. It was $13,000.
I don't believe the auditor's office ever received that.
It was submitted on the 20th of December.
Do you have a copy of that, Dr. Abbott?
Probably back in the office somewhere, yeah.
That was never received by the auditor's office.
Email?
Did you email or walk it in?
I walked it in. Took a copy of it.
Robin does the encumbrances. Robin, did you receive a encumbrance?
I resubmitted on December 20th.
Who'd you hand it to?
I put it in the box. I'm told to put those in. Let's put them in the box for payment.
These are past bills. These are past bills.
These are past bills, trying to get some of the money from last year to pay for some of this extra money.
So if we were to approve the $49,852.09, which I believe in good faith, since he was encouraged to make that transfer to buy that equipment, then that would give his professional services line $49,852.09 in addition to whatever is currently there, which ought to get him through for quite some time. The additional money, I personally don't believe the justification of paying for bills that you generated last year. That's what last year's budget was for, and in last year's budget we gave the coroner's office in additional appropriations. I believe it was somewhere in the neighborhood of $240,000, which more than doubled his annual budget. So to load that line up at this time, I just don't believe would be appropriate. At a certain point, we have to.
Mr. President, are these bills that invoices are coming in, or are these something you anticipate going to happen?
Oh, we usually get, in years past, have gotten $80,000. So when this year started, before I even started paying any bills this year, I'd already spent 53% of my professional funds. So 53% was already obligated. So once I paid for November, December, and January, and pretty much we have spent close to $60,000.
The coroner's budget for this year, professional services, we appropriated $140,000 at budget time.
What was last year?
The year before that, in 2021, was $80,000, and it had been $80,000 for quite some time. But we did with the previous coroner and additional appropriations throughout the year because we knew that $80,000 wasn't enough.
Plus we got COVID too.
Yeah, which is why we increased that based on actual expenditures. We increased that to $140,000 for this budget.
Guys, Auditor, if we don't pay these bills, what happens?
Well, there's money in those line items.
Oh, so you got money in there?
Here's money. How much, if we transferred close to 50,000, how much is in?
Right now, it's 5,043.
5,000 I got.
But this money's coming out of that line item?
So you spent $135,000 of professional services in less than 2 months?
Yes, because I asked for the funds to pay for the last 3 months of 21, and you guys put it off and said that I asked for $70-some thousand, and you guys said, well, just do the encumbrance for 13,000, and then rolled over the other to this year. And so all this money's been rolled over to this year, just like the previous corner had, and I paid their bills dating all the way back to 2017. And the budgets that we had, that you keep saying that you put extra money in, it's because I'm paying these bills dating back 5 years. So you guys say that I've overspent. Well, yeah, I'm going to overspend because I'm paying for budgets that were inappropriately funded previously.
When you brought to us last year that you had bills from the previous coroner, we appropriated, I believe it was in the ballpark of $175,000 to cover those bills.
Yes.
I don't believe there were $175,000 of bills from the previous coroner.
You also appropriated monies so that we could get the coroner's office up to par. If you remember that you appropriated money so that we could buy furniture for the coroner's office because their furniture was not appropriate. We also had to finish the remodeling of the coroner's office. We also got fireproof safes to try to get the coroner's office up to code, like the rest of the offices in this building have been trying to get their files put in a fireproof nature as well. So we have been trying to get the coroner's office up to where it needed to be, and it's going to be a process. And I believe that you gave me an extra $75,000 of that extra money to get those things appropriated.
Councilman Gill,
Yes, sir.
give me a latitude here. Give me 10 seconds. Sorry. I have the 2021 that we appropriated in the coroner's office, and I can't find it. I mean, I know it was substantial, and what my question is, sorry,
If it helps you, I have the numbers right here.
Do you have the total appropriate? Okay.
Yeah, so.
How much did we appropriate in the coroner's budget last year for 2021? Additional.
The appropriation for the coroner's budget was $224,553. The additional appropriations we did in 2021 was $244,584.50.
And where did most of that, Doc, where did most of that money, you're telling me that all that money went to what? I'm confused. I mean, that's a lot of money, and I got to be fair. I'm trying to be fair. You're telling me that went for a remodel for an office, and
you had. I don't have all the numbers here in front of me from 2021. I don't have those here. But you had money that you had for desks, which is approximately, in chairs was $5,000. You had 20 filing cabinets that were put in there.
Do you have invoices for all this stuff?
Yes, it's all been submitted and paid for.
I feel uneasy that we appropriate all that money, and if I could see that you spent all that, and again, I'm looking at, that's a lot of money. That's a lot of money spent, and I'm not calling you dishonest. I'm just saying, I look at that, and I know that's a lot of money, additional appropriation. If you could show me some kind of thing, I'm willing to, but I'm a little nervous.
And like I say, I'm willing to consider some additional funding at times when we can, just like the increase in professional services, because we knew that in previous years we were always short, we were always appropriating more money, so better to have a budget that accounts for that in the beginning. But I think every office holder here, boy, if they could get more than, if they could get their entire budget in additional appropriations and then some in a year, I mean, that's substantial. At a certain point, I have to start questioning if it's being managed appropriately, if decisions are being made to work within the budget, or if there's just a feeling that there's a blank check. We just don't have that.
And I don't want to accuse, but I'm just saying, if you walk up, and I guess I look at this kind of a court of law, you present your evidence of appropriate, I mean, if you can show that you had detailed billing and showed actually the council set in front of us, I think that's fair. And I don't know what the other council thinks, but I think that's fair. But I don't have nothing to go off, and I'm looking at additional funds, and I'm trying to treat every department fair.
Rick or Robin, do you know what the balance is in their professional services today prior to the transfer?
Yeah, it's $5,000.
Yeah, it's 5.
So if we add the 49,852, the current balance is 5,043 and some change. That would get him close to $55,000, which, based on historical averages, that ought to keep him going for a little while. That's definitely shouldn't be consumed all in a month.
I have a question. Dr. Abbott, what is the percentage of the amount of your budget that you pay for bills that came, invoices that you didn't create, that came up afterwards? Do you have a percentage on what that hits your budget for?
I don't understand, Mr.
Okay. You said you pay your current invoice, present and current invoices of that year. But you also stated before us that you had to pay past bills from the past coroner. I'm asking you, how much of that money that you paid past bill that affected your budget, of your current budget?
Well, last year we had, we're in the middle of a pandemic. The coroner's office has been on a shoestring budget for years. So they had bills for dating all the way back to 2017, labs and everything else. I'm still trying to get some stuff caught up for that from NMS, trying to get those things up. They still have labs that are coming back up that we have to go back and corner me and find out where this, if it was an actual case, and going back to 2019 and 2020. We're still filing these bills. But we essentially started the coroner's office this year as a brand new office. And there's a lot of startup costs, and I think you can go back to a year ago and you can find out, and you guys appropriated monies to allow us to start a brand new office, because they understand that. I mean, I have emails from Mr. Gale that says that he did not expect us to be penalized for paying these extra bills, and that he understood that this was going to be an issue when you have to come back and uncover all this extra monies that needed to be covered to get the bills up to date. And we still have bills sitting there for laboratory work and x-ray work that I'm waiting to submit. So this is the type of stuff. When you have someone that's getting a gunshot wound, they have to be x-rayed, and you have to pay for the x-ray funds. If you have to get records, you got to pay for those type of funds. You have to pay for transportation. You're paying for transportation. You're paying for laboratory work. You got to pay for the toxicologies. You got to pay for other labs work. I mean, this is just part of doing the coroner's work. And to say that we're in the middle of a pandemic. We're in a pandemic. You got millions of dollars in money, and you need to spend it on those departments that needed the money, and we need the money.
Dr. Abbott, have you applied for any ARPA funds, or do you plan to?
I don't have any idea what you're talking about, ARPA funds.
Are you a department head?
Oh, ARPA funds for this? Yes, we're going to apply for ARPA funds on the 11th. Yeah.
And what do you intend on, getting reimbursed for?
Well, we are trying to see what is going to go on with this cooler, and we're trying to find out what extra things that we need to do for that, because we need some things to be put into that. And then we also need vehicles as something that we need to do to help cut our transportation, to ease on our transportation so we can transport bodies better. But those are some things that we really need to be looking at.
Any possibility to get reimbursed for COVID deaths or the extra expenditures we have? You've talked a lot about that. Is that something that falls under the ARPA
not that
classification? Have you looked into it?
Not that I know of. I cannot predict the number of people that's going to die.
I'm talking about last year and this year, since you've been in
Well, I pretty much have got those pretty much caught up. That's why my funds have been depleted. Because
Another question. About a year ago, you came to us and said that people, incarcerated persons at the state facility, should be paid by Madison County, and you were going to look into that. Have you done any of that work?
Oh, yes, we have the money sitting there to be submitted. We're just waiting for the state warden.
Okay. Any timeline, or is it? does
No,
it
we're
take
waiting
the
to see
commissioner's
about that.
office?
We're waiting to see about that, where that needs
Have
to
you
be going.
submitted that, or is it?
Yes.
Okay. And what tune of how much money is coming back into the budget for that?
Well, it will depend, because we're asking for them to also look at 2020.
Can you come up to the mic, please?
Yeah.
Please. Thank you.
We've also submitted for the previous year. We're trying to figure out if they have a timeline where they don't cover that. So we're going to see if they'll pay that first year of 2020. If they'll pay that, then we're going to ask for 2019 and 2018 and so forth. And the sheriff's office has been very helpful at helping us to get the contacts out there at the jail. It's not as easy as you think that it's just one person. You have to go through a whole chain of people. And the fact that we've never done this before has been an issue as well.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. President, Dr. Abbott, again, I have no idea what causes an autopsy, and I mean, I have friends that have died with COVID related illnesses, and there was no autopsy done. And most of the people that die with COVID are dying in the hospital, and those individuals typically do not. The hospital is declaring the cause of death, and it isn't necessary. Correct me if I'm wrong. I'm trying to, in my mind, and I'm trying to be as respectful as possible. In my mind, I'm having difficulty understanding why that you have professional expenses that far exceed the previous coroner, and you consistently are blaming it on the pandemic and COVID deaths. And I'm trying to think of what would cause a person that is diagnosed at the hospital and the cause of death was COVID related. Maybe they were on a ventilator, they had some extenuating circumstances, but they died at the hospital. Would you feel that you would need to do an autopsy on that person?
Absolutely not.
Okay, so then explain to me how you can tell us that you're trying to increase, your professional expenses and saying it's because of COVID deaths. Is there a reason for that?
COVID deaths don't die just of the COVID, it's the complications of the COVID. COVID causes a hypercoagulable state, and that causes some issues that increase or decrease tissue perfusion through the lungs and such, and causes a stress on the heart. Through doing autopsies, not only you're seeing the COVID pneumonias, but you're also seeing laceration of the right and left ventricles. And you're seeing that these lacerations occur. It's not from traumatic CPR. It is because there's so much congestion that the ventricle lacerates due to the myositis that is associated with the muscle of the heart. So yes, there are several reasons of why we should be doing that and discovering this. You can talk to Dr. Sozio, who is the forensic pathologist that does our autopsies for us. He covers 33 counties. He says autopsies are up everywhere. This was his all-time high number of autopsies he's done ever in 2021.
Well, and my question is, do the families request these? And again, I don't know.
The coroner decides whether an autopsy needs to be performed. The families don't request it. If they are insistent that they want to have one, we will connect them with Dr. Sozio, and he will do a professional, personal autopsy for them if they request that. But it would not come out of our funds.
Okay, so if you are doing an autopsy, and you're thinking it's COVID related, and I mean, how frequently does that happen? That you all of these different issues come up that you described in medical terms,
how frequently does that happen that you feel it's necessary to do an autopsy for those kinds of conditions?
Well, if you have a 40-year-old female that dies and they not have a drug abuse history, then I think we should be obligated to find the cause of death in that 40-year-old female. I'm not taking 90-year-olds and doing autopsies. We are having lots of people die from this. I have been burnt several times in this past year, people saying, oh, well, this is a known drug abusers. We don't need to be doing an autopsy. We'll just send a toxicology in, and we'll know what it is. Well, the toxicology comes back totally clean. Why did they die? Everybody's getting cremated now. Most people are. You only get one shot at this. Only one. Because there's no exhuming of a body. Everybody's cremated, so you got to speculate what the cause of death is at that point. So if there's a question with this in the middle of this pandemic, then it's a very reasonable expectation, I feel, because I am the coroner and I am a physician, that it is reasonable to perform that autopsy to know what that cause of death was.
So what you're suggesting is, in the previous coroner's position, they were not a medical doctor, and so they didn't do as many autopsies, but you're suggesting they should have done more autopsies. Is that what you're suggesting?
The previous coroner did not do autopsies on some areas, and those are encouraged to be autopsied by Dr. Sozio at this point in time. But we're trying to follow what the current standard is at this time.
And do you determine what that standard is?
There's a national standard that we follow through the coroner's office, and we have to follow that. To do that, there's some basic ones and there's some questions. If we have a death scene and the police officer there, and they've had several of them ask us for that autopsy, and if the sheriff or Anderson Police Department asks us for an autopsy because they have some questionable things going on, then by God, we'll do an autopsy. I think it's very reasonable. We've had a bunch of those lately.
Now, I know you're saying that our budget is up compared to the previous coroner, but we need to be mindful that we paid over $80,000 worth of their autopsies, so that it hasn't been real accurate.
In 2021, we appropriated money for you to pay that.
Okay,
Yeah,
but
we took care of that.
But what I'm saying is, if you go back and put it in their 2020, 2019, if you go back and look at their stuff, then you'll see we're not as far off as you think if we go back. I'm not talking about putting it in 2020. I'm saying go back and look in 2018, 2019, put those back in their regular spots for those years, and then look at what the difference is. I did an Excel spreadsheet, and I can't find it on my phone right now, but we actually, our ratio for the number of cases we had to the number of autopsies was actually lower than all 4 previous years, all the way across the board.
Absolutely.
So, you know, when you start looking at our expenses, we are doing over 500 cases now. Those include body bags. Body bags range anywhere from $30 to $60 a bag, depending on the size of the individual. They're not cheap. Now, could we go cheaper? Absolutely, but those bags tear, bodily fluids leak out. I just came from 2 cases just now. I've got 4 bodies in the cooler right now. You guys think we've got all this cooler space. We got 4 coolers between the 2 hospitals. What do you want me to do with more bodies? I got nowhere to put them. So we got to buy body bags. We got to buy gloves. The previous coroner was not supplying those things for these people. So it's a whole gamut of things, and you guys want to hone in things. I have no idea what these 2 people died of. If I post them right now, I'm going to do a COVID swab on them. Is that COVID going to come back positive? I have no idea. But if it comes back positive, that's after the autopsy. So I have no idea if they had COVID or not. I can't even locate family for these 2 people. So it's a bigger picture here.
The question that we're dealing with now is the general fund requests for professional services. So let's make sure that we don't draw this out in an unnecessary manner.
Councilman Gale,
Yes.
I want to kind of break this down Gerber style. Stay with that, what you just said. We gave you extra money in for autopsy, so I don't want to know I want to know your job, but that's not my job as a councilman is for financial. And I don't want to, and I want to, like I said, I'm hearing autopsies, I'm hearing I'm hearing other past bills, so I'm hearing some different feed I'm getting listening. do you not have money in these line items? I mean, you can't pay certain line items for autopsies because we gave you that. There's a certain amount of line item for that. And I don't have your budget in front of me. So I'm getting confused on different, I hear what you're saying, but do you not have money in autopsy line? I mean, this is, you go down your budget, you put in your budget for this year where your professional services, your equipment, and I'm getting a little confused here. And I just want to know simply, are we done paying these past bills? I mean, because I see requests here in the general fund budget.
You probably have another 20,000 of past bills that's waiting to be paid.
They come in, we just find them. We don't know.
That I know of.
Not 2021. This is 2022. I'm talking about, you're telling me you're still getting bills from 16, 17, 18, and 19?
The last ones have all been from 19 and 20.
Again, in the interest of time, let's go back to the professional services new money request. In my view, the coroner did come and ask for a transfer last month because he was needing equipment. We approved that transfer knowing that he was going to come and ask for a replenishment of those funds. He currently has a little over $5,000 in professional services. We know that that won't last long. Even if we have differences of opinions on whether he's managing that budget as effectively or not, that's not really relevant right now. We know that $5,000 isn't going to get it done for the rest of the year. So since we did approve that transfer last month, knowing that he would be coming asking for replenishment in this line, my suggestion would be for someone to make a motion to approve that request, and then we can further deliberate on the $25,000 if needed later.
I'll make that motion that we approve the $49,852.09 to at least make him whole in terms of what he had to pay for the cooler space and the all of those equipment, and replenish that fund. And then, we'll address the other $25,000 at a later time.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second.
Councilman Geller, one more
Yes, sir.
question. What did they start out with, the 2022 budget?
In professional services, that was, I believe, $140,000.
So what did you, Doc Abbott, what did you spend, you got, how much in there now? $145,000?
There's $5,000, but remember, $49,000 and some change we took out last time. So really, without that transfer, there would have been $55,000 roughly left at this point.
So what do you actually use professional service line for? Transports, what?
Transport, toxicologies, and autopsies.
But don't you have a separate line item in there, Councilman Gill, for autopsies?
No, autopsies comes out of professional services.
Okay, all right.
I do believe that there was, communication and transport was $7,000, so that's another line that he could use for transport, but
And we use that to pay the deputies' gas mileage.
All right.
And cell phone.
So we have a motion and a second for the $49,852.09. Is there any further discussion on this? All in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed? That motion carries. Thank you.
I just have one comment, if I may, please.
Quickly, if you could.
I'm not really, I guess maybe this might be more of a statement. I'm not really sure why it's put on the burden of the coroner's office to continue to ask for taxpayer dollars to help us get out of this pandemic when you've got CARES Act money that's free to the county and you're asking us to use taxpayers' money. It doesn't make sense. The whole reason why we get that kind of money is to help through a situation like this. So it doesn't seem very fiscally responsible that we're using taxpayer dollars when we should be using these CARES Act money, and it is intended for the offices directly impacted by this situation, and that is the coroner's office.
For one, the CARES Act money is is taxpayer dollars. That comes from the federal government. They give that to us because taxpayers pay that. So we have the same obligation for responsibility with that as we do with general fund, public safety, whatever. The way that was done, there was not a request from the coroner's office. Then there was some turbulence in the way that was, that process of applying for CARES Act money happened. That ended up coming from the state as basically salary reimbursement funds, and we utilized some of that for what we, as a council, believed were appropriate CARES Act-related issues. And we reimbursed some salaries, which did help allow us to get the county in a little bit of a better financial position long-term. It is also fiscally responsible for us to have a rainy day fund, and I want to apologize for that. So we are moving
Councilman
on.
Gale, can I say one
Sir,
quick thing?
yes.
I believe the commissioners just had a class with Mr. Richwine. Did you guys attend that with Jessica and Ms. Baker? Was you guys there to apply for this? They just put an outline, I believe they're working on for Harper funds. Did you guys apply for any of that stuff? Were you in their class? Or I don't know, what, a meeting or whatever you had? But I know that you guys had something. Were you guys there? Okay, so have you looked at all their stuff and applied for anything through Harper?
That's what we're working on.
Yeah,
Okay,
that
thank you.
process
It's not
is,
due yet.
yeah, that process
Okay.
is.
And
Thank
that's
you.
what I'm saying.
Okay.
Last council meeting, we sat here and we listened to everybody come to the table saying how they need to be at $17 an hour. But this
Okay.
county continues to leave us at $9.45 an hour.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, so we are moving on now to other new money requests. These are from public safety. These are the items that were tabled last month. The first department was the sheriff's office and the jail. So Sheriff Mellinger. Okay. Okay. Is it regarding to what we? Yes. Okay. I'm sorry, Sheriff. Could I have the auditor speak for a minute? He's asked to say something.
I want to just clear up a couple things here. I don't know if people just flat out don't understand how that CARES Act funding works. The CARES Act is a federal government act, but we were awarded $4.2 million in 2020, and during that year we had expenses related to the pandemic, whether it be hand sanitizer, cleaning materials, rental of a temporary morgue, we paid for from that. And what we didn't spend in that was the federal government and the state allowed for public safety wages to be repaid to the county in 2020. I keep hearing every month for the last 12 months about the CARES Act. There is no CARES Act. The CARES Act ended in 2020. There's no carryover money, no nothing else. That's reimbursement money, and through State Board of Accounts guidelines, any money that was reimbursed that remained in that fund had to be moved over into the general fund. It's not leftover money. It's not somebody got shorted something, somebody cried about something, didn't get something. It's the way the accounting process worked. That grant was over at the end of 2020. You couldn't make a purchase on January 1st of 2021. It's not possible. And I hear this every month, and I've heard it for 12 months now, and it's quite irritating. Secondly, is there was no encumbrance turned in from the coroner's office on the 21st of December or whenever that was. That it didn't get up and walk out of a box. It didn't happen. This young lady sitting over here at this computer is the one that does all the encumbrances. And I don't appreciate her being called a liar in public. She does those encumbrances. We don't throw them in the trash or we'll run them in the shredder. We don't go make them disappear. You didn't bring it in. Just like you don't turn in your stuff one time a lot of times. Now, I'll quit here, but I'm just saying this is a repetitive item that happens. I'm sorry? What's the question?
All right. That's enough. We're not going to have back and forth. Rick, if you could just conclude your statement.
Okay. And also, we're in the middle of the ARPA funds. Also, I just reviewed an invoice for the comment was made about paying for the floor in the health department building for the coroner, and that was paid by the health department. It's on an invoice for the health department. So I don't appreciate false statements in a public meeting disparaging one of my employees that works very hard and does those encumbrances every single year. So thank you.
Thank you. That's enough.
Well, he gets to speak, but nobody else does?
You just had your chance. You're done. Sheriff, please step forward.
Scott Mellinger, Sheriff's Office. I did pass out an itemized list of items that I'm requesting in terms of salary adjustments and raises out of the Public Safety Lit Fund. But I should probably start by saying I will withdraw what's listed first. in the sheriff's budget for other supplies and machinery and equipment for $310,000. I'm going to attempt to get as much of that request folded into ARPA funds as I can. I know some of it is applicable, I just don't know that all of it will be, but I will do my very best. All of those items are things that we need. I think I've discussed it with 2 or 3 of you when you asked me about them, because we presented that list 1 or 2 meetings ago, and we also presented that list when we were talking about lit money over the last few weeks. So I will withdraw the request for the sheriff's budget in terms of other supplies and machinery and equipment. So what is left, with your permission, I will withdraw it.
Yes, please.
Shouldn't take anything for granted. I do have other requests, though, in the jail budget and more than the sheriff's budget for salary adjustments. So first on the list under the jail budget is I request that the county establish a pay matrix for jail officers. Our deputies have a pay matrix. Many law enforcement agencies, including jails across the state of Indiana, have a pay matrix, and that is to strictly attract more people into the career, but more importantly, to retain people who stay, to retain good people who stay. There would be a bump once you've served 1 year, up to 3 years, there would be a bump of $500. 4 years to 6 years, a bump of $750. 7 years to 10, a bump of $1,000, and 10 years or more, that's where you would cap out at $1,500. We would hope to retain more good people this way. There's nothing guaranteed. I can tell you that every sheriff in the state of Indiana is having unbelievable difficulty keeping corrections officers. A lot of it is the pay, a lot of it is the type of job it is. And for instance, Marion County, they just announced $5,000 signing bonus for anyone who fills out an application and can pass the process. That's how tough it is to keep corrections officers. It's happening all over the state of Indiana. So the total for that pay matrix works out to $20,750 annually. So it's an additional $20,750.
Sure, can I ask you a question real quick?
Sure.
What your Delaware County, I know Hamilton's rate, I talked to a couple of deputies, and I've been, we're at 6, tell me what did you pay for right now as a jail officer?
I think it's around $17.60 per hour.
$17.60, what, do you know Delaware?
I do not, but I've got a list that I passed out at the personnel committee. I'm sorry, just the personnel committee got that, Michaela, and I apologize.
That's okay.
But they have copies there.
That's an extra. It's on the back.
I can tell you one thing that you'll see on that list of counties. You'll see about 10 to 15 counties whose populations are less than half of what Madison County has, and their corrections officers are paid significantly more.
And one more quick question while we're on the jail. How many are you short right now? How many openings do you have?
We have 3 full-time openings and 4 part-time openings.
And you feel like for this raise, that would keep jail officers?
I hope it would. We try everything. I can tell you that our pay is low. If you compare it to other counties our size, it's very low. We're losing jail officers to other jail facilities who pay $1 or $2 more per hour.
And my concern for our employees, the less you have and you have an incident, that's a safety hazard for jail. I mean, jail, I don't think people, I worked at a jail, it's a different environment versus being on, so you hope that would hold with this raise?
I hope it would. And one other example, Department of Corrections, which it's a little bit different, prisons versus jail, but there's a lot of similarities. And at the Department of Corrections right now, after you serve your first year, you automatically go up to $20 per hour. That's not a whole lot of money, but that's $2 more per hour than our supervisors make. So it's we're just trying everything we can to incentivize people to stay or people to come to us. And it's one of the reasons that, quite frankly, that I put so much time in on the public safety lit.
Okay, thank you, Sheriff.
Do you want me to move along or see if anybody has any questions on each item?
Sorry, we were just making sure that Diana could hear.
That's okay. That's okay. I guess I should look that way every once in a while to make sure that she knows that I'm including her. The next item on the list was jail supervisor pay adjustments. For our assistant jail commander, I'm asking for a $3,000 salary adjustment. She currently is paid $44,470 per year. Sergeants, we have 3 of those, 1 on each shift. Each one of those, the 2 night shifts, each sergeant supervises 10 people. On the day shift, that sergeant supervises 15. I'm asking for a $1,500 bump in the jail sergeant salary. They currently make $41,679. And the corporals, we have 6 of those. I'm asking for a $1,000 bump there, and they currently make $39,615. That total adjustment is $14,500 per year. And the last item, the raises, I'm asking for 4% across the board for all jail staff. That's 58 people. I'm asking for an additional salary adjustment for the cooks within the jail. We have 1 cook supervisor and 3 full-time assistant cooks. In that jail we serve, right now we're serving 680 meals per day. And those cook supervisors, they not only prepare the menus, but they supervise inmate workers who do most of the physical work in the kitchen.
Do you have openings there, Sheriff?
Not right now.
Okay.
Last year we had 2 openings for over 5 months each, which caused a lot of overtime, and we even had jail officers that had to work in the kitchen frequently. So those raises, the total of those raises for all jail staff is $94,406. So for the lit request for all 3 of these components, I only asked for I shouldn't say only. I asked for $111,500. That's a lot of money. We actually need $656. I would, if you approve the $111,500, I would likely come back and ask for that additional. If I can't get that, I will work really hard to find it in my budget.
Sheriff, what is that for? I see that, what's the extra for the 18 one?
I had already advertised the $111,500 at last month's council meeting, and knowing I didn't have to re-advertise for tonight, I forgot to bump it up to what it should be. So that was on me.
Okay.
Right, so tonight we could entertain the $111,500, I believe.
Yes, because that's all it was advertised.
Having a conversation. Go ahead, Councilman.
I was getting ready to make a motion to approve the sheriff's request at $111,500.
Second.
But I'd like to also, I know that all these departments are comparing Madison County with similar counties. The only difference is Madison County is a low to moderate income county, and when we're talking about lit tax, it's coming in at a lower amount. We also the average home in Madison County is in less than $100,000 versus Hamilton County. If you do that comparison, we're talking close to $200,000. So the property taxes, and we're sitting here comparing based on population. In reality, there's more to the puzzle than just an equal comparison between one county to the other versus population. But I believe that, just as Councilman Emery said at the last meeting, you guys diligently worked and sold this lit tax to cities and towns, and you did a yeoman's job of getting that accomplished. And so obviously we want to fund that to you based on the fact that you guys did work to get it. So I want to I'll vote for that motion.
Okay, so we have a motion to approve by Councilman Alexander and a second by Councilman Vaughn. Is there any further discussion on this?
Yes, I will say, Sheriff, I've been over there a couple times, I guess, and met with you, and I've had personal conversations. And I want to be careful how I represent taxpayers spending money, but I've had quite a bit of conversation with your staff. And they're concerned about their safety. And I worked in 2 jails in Arizona and Indiana. And this is a tough job, and I don't think anyone would want to trade their job in the county to go to work at the jail. So I'll be second that motion.
Is there any other discussion on this one? Rick, looking at our package of salary ordinances, I should have caught this earlier. I apologize. I don't see one for this. Am I missing it here?
No, we did not do that one because we didn't know what lines they were going in. So I guess if there's a matrix to cover all those lines, then if we stick it in.
And I'm happy to get the individual lines for you, but because I wasn't sure, since I had 3 components, I wasn't sure how to do the lines.
Let me ask you this question. It would depend on who you had or who you hired, whether they would get it or not, right? I'm talking about like a new person versus somebody that's already there.
And, well, the new people start out at the base salary. And then we've got a list of seniority of everybody who's been there from 1 year to 2.
Another spot?
Yes.
Okay, so it need to be an individual lines.
And I can get all those to you if...
Yeah, we would need that to put it on the salary ordinance.
Okay.
Yeah, so what we would have to do tonight is vote on the appropriation, and then unfortunately it wouldn't go into effect until we approve the salary ordinance. This may be another reason to consider next month if we can try to pass the salary ordinance unanimously so that this doesn't become a 3-month process, since there was just some confusion on that. So any other discussion on
Sheriff,
this motion?
Just to be, Sheriff, did these people get the 3%?
Yes, they did.
And so I'm going to vote for it, but I know you can't guarantee you have a magic stick, but I hope this stabilizes that.
We hope it does too.
Okay.
It'll be maybe part of the solution.
I'd like to call for the question.
Okay. All in favor then say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, Sheriff.
On the second page, Sheriff's budget, I have 7 civilian employees that are in the Sheriff's budget. I'm requesting a 4% raise for them, and I actually have a surplus in my budget to cover that, if you will approve it, and I can have that on a transfer next month if you want to wait and consider it next month.
I should wait and consider it.
I'm looking for that. I'm not seeing it in my packet.
You still got it.
I've got another copy.
Oh, I'm sorry. So that's
But
not
you
our
haven't
packet.
asked for the transfer yet, right, Sheriff?
I have not.
Okay.
So this is something that you would have to make the request for the transfer for our next meeting,
Yes.
correct? Okay.
Yes.
I believe so. So yeah, so that will just have to be a process that we
Sure.
start next meeting.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you.
And the officers will appreciate it too.
Thank you. They deserve it. Next new money from Public Safety is the Prosecutor's Office.
Andrew Hanna, Chief Deputy Prosecutor. The requests that we have tonight are carryovers from last council meeting. We would move to amend these numbers a little bit, withdraw both the 32,000 and the 36,000 line items, which are communications and transportation for 12,000, repairs and maintenance for 8,000, and then reduce our request in the machinery and equipment request to just $10,000. So that's reducing that request by $130,000 just on that, and then another $20,000 between the other 2 requests. So the total amount of money that we would be requesting tonight is $45,613 in salaries, and then $10,000 in machinery and equipment.
Mr. Hannah, what's the machinery and equipment?
Machinery and equipment would be our purchasing of any computers, desks, necessary equipment, vehicles, all kinds of stuff like that. So with our investigators, we're pursuing ARPA money to try to pay for our vehicles. Obviously, our investigators, we have 1 vehicle now, and we have 5 investigators. So we will need our investigators to go, one of which being the educational neglect, compulsory school attendance investigator needs to go to schools, doorsteps, visit families, find students, all that kind of stuff. Our investigators need to investigate cases and be out in the community. Sometimes that includes, picking up witnesses, bringing people, all kinds of stuff. So we need vehicles. We're going to pursue that through ARPA. That's what this machinery and equipment money would be. But we're going to hold off, see if we can't secure that through ARPA. We're going to also do our best to try to find solutions within our discretionary funds. As what the council has done between these series of raises has taken off some of the load of our discretionary funds, and we can then use those funds to the best of our ability to buy vehicles, other necessary pieces of equipment that we need to kind of fully implement these new positions and everything that we need to do with that. So that's kind of why we're reducing our request now. We're going to turn to ARPA and try to exhaust any possible alternative funding mechanism. But right now we just have the final request for our raises and then $10,000 in machinery and equipment.
Thank you very much for putting the work into trying to find other ways, other solutions, and cost savings. I do appreciate that. Councilman Bond?
Mr. Hannah, did these people get 3% raise?
Yes, they did, Councilman. Just to remind you, as we've gone through this process, the amount of money that they're getting in those line items is not reflective of the raise that they would be getting. I would say that the secretary's raises that would be getting would be around $1,000 a piece, but it's replacing supplemental funds that we've been paying. So all of our secretaries in our office are funded completely differently. Over periods of time, as you add a secretary in 1999, it gets funded at a different base salary than a secretary that you add in 2011 and 2016. They're all at different base salaries. So over the years, one of the things that we've had to do, as we've talked at length about using our supplemental funds in the prosecutor's office to compensate prosecuting attorneys, one of the other things that we've had to do is our staff across the board. And so most of our support staff make between the legal secretaries that do very important work for our office, make between 34 and 36,000-ish, 36.5. So what this would do is level off our secretary salaries at the same salaries as there's 4 court reporters in every court. It would be the same salary as 3 of those court reporters, not the head court reporter. That makes more. But all these legal secretaries that are performing relatively similar functions across our criminal justice system will be paid at the same rate.
So secretaries you have?
It depends. Are you talking, once again, we have a lot of different fractions of the prosecutor's office. In our criminal office, we have 1 secretary assigned to each court, and we have a receptionist. So we're not
only 2? You only have 2?
No, we have 1 secretary assigned to each court. So we have 6 secretaries, 1 secretary per court. There are 6 courts.
6 secretaries.
Right.
You want another one, right?
I'm sorry.
You want another one, right? Another? You asking for another?
No. So, Chief Deputy Hannah, then I think a good example of this is line item 11.310, where the request is $23,090. That does not mean that person's getting a $23,000 raise. That's all right. Yeah. That's just removing a big chunk of their compensation. It's currently your discretionary fund is covering that,
right,
and allowing public safety to
right, which part of us pushing forward for these, the county picking up the bigger part of the bill sort of for secretaries, and we'll have a very reduced influence in any salaries with our supplemental funds.
Right. And we remember on the council that last year their supplemental funds were declining significantly, and weren't able to keep up, so this alleviates that issue.
The only thing,
Councilman Alexander?
Is there a chance that we might see an increase now that hopefully in another month or so, the courts are going to be open and we're going to be seeing more criminal cases filed and jury trials and all these things, and with the rest, you're compensating different items that can be sold?
Well,
is there any chance that the supplemental funds are going to be reversing a little bit?
Our supplemental funds are a little complicated, so there's a couple, we rely on three different funds. One is our 4D, which is our child support money. That's pretty complicated, but there are a lot of restrictions as to what we can use that money on. So the two main ones that we use in the criminal office are our civil forfeiture, or 2502 account, and then our diversion account, which is our 2501 account. Diversions dipped relatively early in the pandemic pretty significantly, but because most of our diversions comes from the city courts. So the city courts just closed completely. They're closed right now. I mean, I think Anderson's completely closed. Elwood is functioning to some extent. But our diversions haven't been significantly influenced consistently. It was a big dip. We were able to get some money from the CARES Act to replace those funds. However, there's been a huge change in the law and just how our civil forfeiture account works. So Indiana has made revisions to their civil forfeiture account. There's a Supreme Court opinion several years ago in a case called Timms that affected the amount of property that you can seize and how it has to be proportional to the crime charged, so forth. We used to get about 300, 400, sometimes we had $1 million a year one year in our civil forfeiture account. We average about $30,000 a year from civil forfeiture. There's lots of reasons to that. One being the change in the law. Two being people don't carry around bags of cash anymore. A lot of stuff like that. Criminals can be a little smarter at times, but that's just not the nature of the game anymore. And we aren't able to seize a vehicle as easily as we used to be. We aren't able to seize a house as easily as we used to be when somebody is dealing drugs out of that house and whatnot. So our civil forfeiture account has just completely changed. And so really we are just working with our diversions and then a very small amount of civil forfeitures. So, and a lot of these salaries, a lot of these expenditures have been built up in these supplemental fund accounts when we were receiving a much higher revenue stream, but nothing about, COVID affects it to some extent, but the real significant changes to that are long-term trends, changes in the law that affect our ability to seize property.
So is there any chance that if perchance that you have a seizure of $1 million that you'll reimburse?
You'll be the first person I call. Yeah. Thank you.
All right.
Okay. Would there be a motion?
Mr. President, if I just may quickly, upon advice from council, I'll be recusing myself from this vote, but I would request a roll call vote so that I can go on record abstaining.
Thank you. Okay. Would there be a motion?
I'll move the motion.
Okay. We have a motion to approve by Councilman Alexander.
As amended?
Yes, as amended, correct. Yeah. So it'd be the 55-613.
I'll second.
Okay, we have a second by Councilman Steele. Any further
Councilman
discussion?
Gill, I have a question for the auditor, Mr. Gardner. This amount here, and I guess we don't have to be precise.
I think I have the numbers that you're asking for.
I'm just asking, we're at 60%. So what does this kind of bring us up to in spending? Because I know now
we just approved the $111,500 for the sheriff's department, and then with the additional 55,613, that total is $167,113 out of the roughly $500,000 that we have left.
So then what percentage is that? I guess I looked at both, but percentage, I know we're at 60, but now where we're at now.
Well, and if the judges go through the 125,500, that gets us at 292,600. So about 300,000 of the 500,000 still left in lit. Gives us about 200,000 plus a little cushion.
So it does give us, do you agree to that? I'm not calling you, I'm just saying, so you're saying with the courts and with this prosecutors
And the sheriff.
and the sheriff,
We would
we'd
have
have a $300,000 cushion?
No, we would spend 300, just short of 300,000.
So what will be our cushion there?
About 200 and some to what, 210?
Yeah.
I call for the question.
Okay. So we would have a roll call vote, please.
Councilman Reese?
No.
Councilwoman Likens?
Yes.
Councilman Alexander?
Yes?
Councilman Steele?
Yes.
Councilman Emery?
Abstain?
Councilman Vaughn? Councilman Vaughn?
No.
President Gale?
Yes. So that passes. Thank you.
Thank you, Council.
The last new money request from Public Safety Fund is the courts, and this again is what they had requested at the last meeting. Bill is tabled.
Thank you, President Gale. Steve Coaster, Judge, Circuit Court 2, the Chief Judge for the Circuit Courts for 2022. Again, this is a carryover from the last meeting that we had. We didn't get through all of our requests before we kind of got hijacked by the prosecutor's office, and I can say that because I worked for them for 24 years. But so they got a lot of what they wanted, and our request got tabled. But this was, again, to go back, and I won't spend a lot of time on this, but in last year's budget, we had requested a 7% increase for the court employees. That was denied. So our employees got the 3% that everybody else got. The request that we have now is the extra 4%, which again goes along with the lit funds that Chief Judge Hoppy worked with the prosecutor's office and the sheriff in getting that tax passed for the purpose of hopefully getting these raises that we're requesting for today. Also in this request is some funds for equipment that we used. For example, in my courtroom, we had to replace our recording equipment because it was just quite simply failing. So that's the $36,575 is for some of the cosmetic that we tried to do in last year's budget, but quite simply ran out of time before we requested it, and there were some processes that had been used for many years that was not honored for that year, so that's what that request is for. And then we have the problem-solving court case manager, and Judge Sims is here if there's any questions about that. We didn't discuss that last time. We didn't get to it, but those are raises, again, that we're requesting from the lit funds that, quite simply, she's been requesting for years to get raises to get them up to where they should be. There probably should be more, but the bottom line is we're requesting these, and I went through a little bit last time as to why we're requesting these raises. We lost 7 court reporters last year, quite simply because we're not paying them enough money. So again, it's a carryover request, and we're requesting those monies through the new funds that we've received. Okay. Thank you.
Judge?
Yes.
These court reporters got the 3%, right?
Correct.
And you also gave $5,000 to one court reporter in each of the court, correct?
Yes, the supervising court reporters, yes.
Okay. Thank you.
This is basically a 4% raise, as was indicated last month. Is that what we're talking about?
Correct.
All right. I make a motion that we approve this request for $125,574.11.
Okay, we have a motion to approve by Councilman Alexander. Is there a second?
I'll second.
We have
Roll call
a
vote,
second by Councilman Steele. Is there any discussion? All right, we'll do a roll call. Oh, I'm sorry, Councilman.
You lumped the 36,000 for the machinery into this request.
Correct. Yes.
I wish we could do that separately.
Yeah. What?
The motion is for the whole package.
I know.
Okay. Roll call vote then, please.
Councilman Reese?
Sustain.
Councilman Likens?
Yes.
Councilman Alexander,
Yes.
Councilman Steele,
Yes.
Councilman Emery,
Yes.
Councilman Vaughn,
Sustain.
Councilman Gale,
Yes. The motion passes. Thank you. Thank you. Now, with,
President, I'd like to make a point of order.
okay,
I think when a council member abstains from voting, they're supposed to give a reason.
That's not in the, no.
Actually, you're supposed to ask the chair.
okay. So in the,
I don't think that's in the code. It's not.
so the two,
If you're not going to abstain from the vote, you ask the chair, give them their reasons, and then they can provide.
So is it up to the chair?
You can't make someone vote on something, so you really rarely go down that path, but it's good procedure to at least explain your reasoning for abstaining. For example, I know Councilor Emery already asked the chair in advance for last meeting about abstaining on this. That's my opinion, and so, that's why he abstained.
So we have to ask, so the chair can approve if we abstain and ask an amendment. I guess I'm getting confused.
yeah.
I mean, if either you gotta make it one for all, I mean, if we abstain, we gotta explain why we're abstaining, but.
Abstaining.
Whatever, you know what I'm talking about.
Proper procedure is if you say, Chair, I would like permission to abstain. Chair generally grants it if you give them a good reason. This is how Robert's rules usually follows. The chair is not going to sit there and make you vote in practice.
Right.
So if you're going to abstain, you're going to abstain. But it's proper to give a reason for doing so.
Well, let's not hearing about this.
Well, that's part of what we have been trying to do. Ted and I have been talking over the last several months. The question is,
Councilman
again,
Gill, do you want me to give you a reason?
well, let me finish my statement, then you can if you'd like. It's the question of past practice versus best practice. When I first got on the council, there was a way of doing things. Some of those things seemed appropriate. Some of those things I had questions about. So what I'm doing is, every month or so, I'm asking Ted to help advise, and I've been spending a lot more time than usual in Robert's rules, and Councilman Alexander has it here. It's impossible for me, I'll admit it's impossible for me to memorize this, so I need help from some of you that might have different experiences or different knowledge bases. And so the intent is simply to get better at doing what we do and to be more in line with the rules that the council decided many years ago to follow, as well as making sure we're in line with state statutes. So it's a continual process of improvement that I'm open to, I'm working on. And so, in this case, neither of you would have known that either because it's not what our past practice has been. So it's just a matter of a point of order to clarify that moving forward, that's something we learned tonight. We can apply that and move on. So
I guess, Councilman Gill, I've seen other councils, the Anderson City Council, and I know Ken just made a comment, they don't give a reason, they just stand.
I would say
I've seen that in other councils.
the Anderson City Council is an example. I don't know what rules they have voted to abide by. I don't know that it's Robert's rules, because if they do, it's a very loose application of Robert's rules, in my opinion. So, but perhaps they have a different set of rules. I don't know. I'm not knowledgeable on that. It's a different council. So, moving forward, I say that we just say we apply that lesson that we learned tonight and we move on. If you would like to give a reason, fine, but I'm happy to say let's just moving forward now that we all know, apply that.
Okay.
So, anyway, now we did, I believe, before that discussion, we did approve the request. The salary portion, again, just a reminder, the salary ordinance has to come first, but your equipment items that we approved, those can be expended immediately. So thank you. Thank you. Appreciate your...
What's the tally, Rick? You know what the tally is, how much expensive part of them?
Rick, tonight it was $292,687.11.
$292,687.
And so then last month it was $998.
$989 and change.
About 1,000, sir.
I'll give you a total number here in 1 second. Yeah.
What are we going on?
$989,672 last month.
Okay, so that is a total of $1,282,359.11.
One more time, sorry, Gil.
$1,282,359.11.
Okay, thank you.
So that would mean we have about $218,000 left. With that being said, my personal view on that is that we have done some amazing things that I think will help those departments and will further public safety in the county, and I'm really hopeful that we'll be able to see some results from that. I think there is a lot of wisdom now in one, recognizing that we don't have all that money at once. So raises, that's cash flowed over the year. But we don't have much as far as cash flow accumulation in that account now. So one-time expenses, it's going to be very difficult to do for any time in the near future until more money builds up. But outside of that, I think it's wise to have a cushion. I mean, we're still dealing with, courts had suspended some of the operations. We don't know what it's going to look like when things open up again. Is there going to be additional expenses that we don't that we aren't aware of? And again, when crafting the general fund and the other public safety, the public safety that was actually calculated into the 22 budget, by looking at actual expenditures of previous years and appropriating based on that, that means we may not have leftover money in a bunch of line items that end up helping us at the end of the year with total cash on hand. So I think we should be very cautious, very careful, and know that there are some good things that are happening, but we need to probably pursue a bit of caution moving forward for a little bit.
Can we ask a question, real quick question?
1 second. Councilman Alexander, I think beat you to it.
Actually, Robert's Rules does allow for a person to vote present or abstain. It says if a person does not wish to vote either aye or nay, may abstain or vote present. So that's according to...
That's what I thought. We didn't have to.
Well, Ted and I can review that, since again, it's not something that we're applying immediately. Then we can review that and, make sure there's not somewhere else that adds to that or anything. So, but I'll try to remember that. We'll have an answer, and in my comments next meeting, I'll try to come with information on that. So we are moving on now to salary ordinances.
Are we, I got a quick question, Councilman Gale. Robin, are we on a live?
Yes.
We are? Okay. Thank you.
Again, we can introduce these tonight as a first reading. If somebody were to make a motion to pass it, one of these, and it were seconded, and it was a unanimous vote, it could pass tonight, but in most cases, it would typically be going to the next meeting for a second reading. I
do, in light of the fact that we have so many individuals that have already committed in some form of a commitment, that we should do something here to expedite this. So I would make a motion that we suspend the rules and vote to at least create an opportunity to vote on this.
I don't believe it's necessary to suspend the rules.
Yeah, you can't do that.
So it would just be a matter of if there's a motion made to pass one of these and we voted unanimously to do so, then it would pass.
Okay. I make a motion that we...
could I maybe, there is one of these that would be needing some amendment. Can I introduce that one first? Okay. Salary Ordinance 2022-2C. This would be the general fund request. This is what our clerk brought to us. It lists a large number of positions, but the only positions that would apply would be Chief Deputy, Head Bookkeeper, and Election Director. That is what the appropriation was via the transfer tonight. So Ted, make sure I'm correct here. A motion to approve this one, if that's what someone wanted to do tonight, would need to be a motion to approve as amended.
Okay.
Well,
Are we supposed to amend, or isn't somebody supposed to make a motion to amend the ordinance ahead of that? Because we haven't amended it yet.
that's correct.
Okay. So if somebody wanted to make a motion to amend this ordinance, even if it stayed at the first reading, at least it's amended, and we would have introduced it as we would be presenting it next month on the second reading.
That's right. And even if it's minor changes, the amendment will still count as second reading.
Okay. Okay.
So I make a motion that we amend ordinance 2022-2-C, an ordinance adjusting the salary of employees for, in this case, the clerk, to cover the chief deputy 11,200, head bookkeeper 11,402, and the election director 11,002, excluding all of the other individuals' line items that are related.
Okay, so that is a motion to amend the ordinance. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, any discussion on the amendment? And again, this is not approval of the ordinance, it's just simply amending it. Okay, hearing none, all in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed? Okay, the motion carries. So now, is there a motion on approval for that ordinance, or do we go on and introduce the next?
I make a motion that we approve salary ordinance 2022-2-C.
Okay, there is a motion to approve. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay, we have a second.
Roll call vote, please.
Yes, we'll do a roll call, as it's important to know for sure whether this is unanimous or not. So,
As amended.
as amended, right?
Who's seconding that?
I did. Councilman Steele. Yes. Sorry.
Is this these are new positions, raises, what do you speak? These are raises, right?
Councilman Reed?
Sustained, reason why we already gave 3%, and I think that 3% is enough right now. Unless for everybody, we go 7%. But right now, it's just for these, I sustain.
Councilwoman Likens?
Abstain.
Yes. Councilman Alexander?
Yes.
Councilman Steele?
Yes.
Councilman Emery?
Yes.
Councilman Vaughn?
No.
President Gale?
Yes. So that did not pass unanimously, so that will move on to a second reading at our March meeting. The next one is salary ordinance 2022-2D. This is for the high-tech crime unit fund and the adult protective services fund. So those were the state funds that were not part of general fund or public safety.
I make a motion that this ordinance 2022-2D, these are adjusting the salaries of the employees for year 2022. That's my motion.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion by Councilman Reese, a second by Councilman Vaughn, and we'll do a roll call vote on this.
These are state funds, correct?
Yes.
These are state funds.
Councilman Reed?
Yes.
Councilwoman Likens? Yes. Councilman Alexander?
Yes.
Councilman Steele?
Yes.
Councilman Emery?
Yes.
Councilman Vaughn?
Yes.
President Gale?
Yes, so that passes after the first reading. Next would be salary ordinance 2022-2E. This is adjusting the salary of the prosecutor's office employees.
Mr. President?
Yes.
Again, under advisement of council, I would request to abstain from this vote and request roll call vote.
Now, if he abstains, then we can't have a unanimous vote, correct? So this would have to go to a second reading anyway? Okay, so it really isn't necessary to take a vote at this point. Okay, so that one will have to wait then, because it can't be unanimous tonight.
Does it still need a first reading tonight?
We still have to have a first reading.
Oh, okay. Okay, perfect.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay.
Let me give Councilman Reese a minute. Okay, so next would be salary ordinance 2022-2F.
This is public safety funds increasing pay for some of the court employees.
I move the approval of salary ordinance 2022-2F, adjusting the salaries of these court, administrative court, circuit court positions in this salary ordinance 2022-2F.
Okay, we have a motion to approve by Councilman Alexander. Is there a second?
Second.
We have a second by Councilman Emery. Any discussion? I guess I would just say that, you know, the appropriation did pass by majority. It's very, very unlikely that this salary ordinance, as the others, won't pass at the next meeting. So if it's possible for members to accept that, then it would just simply prohibit a delay in the inevitable, basically. So that would be my opinion on it. Is there any other discussion?
What do you mean? What do you mean? Break that down.
Encourage all the members to vote for the affirmative.
Right.
So that we don't delay it another month.
Some of these ordinances, you know, that the courts came to us last month. We tabled it. We then realigned our processes, and so, you know, we ideally would have had the salary ordinances prepared for last month's meeting, but unfortunately we didn't.
Right.
So, you know, whether you supported the appropriation of funds or not, knowing that the majority of the council did support that and that it would likely pass under the second reading next month if it's not a unanimous approval this month, I would just ask people to consider that if it's reasonable to delay what would likely just be the inevitable, because of, you know, a member's, you know, respectable declining to support the appropriation, but that did pass by the council. The appropriation did. So.
Call for the question.
Okay, we'll do a roll call vote on this one.
Councilman Reese?
I sustain. I think my reasons being that this is a raise, correct? Additional raises, and I believe all raises should be dealt with in the budget hearing.
Councilwoman Likens?
Yes.
Councilman Alexander?
Yes.
Councilman Steele?
Yes.
Councilman Emery?
Yes.
Councilman Vaughn?
I sustain, and the reason why is because we gave a 3% raise. It's not fair to all employees. It's not equal.
President Gale?
I would vote yes, but since that did not pass unanimously, then that would move on to the second reading at the next meeting. One other point of clarification. I suppose if somebody disagrees with something and is not in favor of it, wouldn't a no vote be more appropriate than abstaining?
That's our choice.
I mean, yes, it is your choice, but it's just a question of process. Abstention to me typically means there's some reason why you don't feel that you can.
Yes, but it's not a yes or a no, correct?
Okay.
You see what I mean? Now, if you were going one way or the other, it'd be different, but it's not a yes or a no. I can say yes, I support part of it, but no, I don't support the other part. So
Okay. Thank you. That explanation does help. Okay. The last salary ordinance for tonight, salary ordinance 2022-2G, public safety fund for, this would be for the problem-solving courts.
I move the approval of salary ordinance 2022-2G, the request for the public safety fund.
Okay, we have a motion by Councilman Alexander.
Second.
We have a second by Councilman Steele. Is there any discussion on this one?
Is that for raises too?
Yeah, this would be raises for those as well from the public safety fund. All right, hearing none, we'll do a roll call vote on this one.
Councilman Reese?
I sustain, reason being, I think all raises should be dealt with in the budget hearing.
Councilwoman Likens?
Yes.
Councilman Alexander?
Yes.
Councilman Steele?
Yes.
Councilman Emery?
Yes.
Councilman Vaughn?
I sustain. 3% raise already been given.
President Gale?
Yes.
Okay, so that one will move on to a second reading at the March meeting as well. So, Rick, I believe, if I kept track of that right, we approved the general fund adjustments, the salary ordinance for the clerk, and we approved the high-tech crime unit fund and the adult protective services fund. So I'll have these in a separate pile that can be signed in a little bit, and the remainder in a pile that we can deal with next month, as well as making sure we create one for the sheriff's department for next month. Next on the agenda would be committee reports. I know Councilman Emery had a personnel committee meeting recently. Would you like to give us a report on that?
Yes, Mr. President, and with the council's permission, I'll give an abbreviated report since most of this was already dealt with tonight prior to this report. Personnel committee did meet on Tuesday, February 1st, 2022. Meeting opened at 6 p.m. Members Fred Reese, Rob Steele, and committee chair Anthony Emery present. The one thing that was not already covered in tonight's meeting was from the commissioner's office, and Commissioner Rich Wine was present. He had a few requests for consideration. He requested an additional $10,000 appropriation to be utilized for an increase for salary of county administrator. He stated the current salary for the position is roughly $48,000 or approximately. I stated Dan Dykes agreed to lower salary when he was here because he wanted to do the job and was willing to do a lower salary as a service to the county. Commissioner Richmond stated other counties similar demographics to Madison County were paying their county administrators an average of $58,000. I stated job responsibility, job knowledge, need to do the job, commanded the higher salary. He felt $58,000 was a reasonable salary to ensure the county hired and retained a qualified person. He went on to state the current county administrator accepted the position with the understanding the commissioners would approach council requesting salary increase at a later date. Motion was made by Councilman Reed, seconded by Councilman Steele, with all members voting present, that the request be brought to the full council. And with that, I think that Commissioner Richwine's probably going to have that request at next month's meeting. Is that correct? Okay. Second request by Commissioner Richwine was an additional appropriation to increase the deputy director of the county emergency management position. This current appropriation set at $10,000. We request to increase the amount of the salary to $40,000. I stated that the position has a 50% reimbursement from the state. Went on to state that there was that while they were hiring the director, they realized the certifications and training necessary or required for the jobs both of the director and the assistant, and that it's basically impossible to find somebody to take that position for $10,000. So you're not going to get anyone to apply for it. And again, with it being a 50% reimbursement, he thought this was an opportune time to do that. A motion was made by Councilman Reese, seconded by Councilman Steele, with all members voting present to request to the full council. And again, I believe they're going to present that next month as well. And the third request he had was utilizing the highway fund part-time line item to make a full-time personnel support position. This position would support both the county highway department and the county engineering department. Both Commissioner Richwine and County Engineer Jessica Baston both presented information on that with the importance.
Those monies come from the highway department.
County Highway Department, right. These are not general fund, so Fred was excited to hear that. Not in the general fund. These are going to be supported out of the county highway and county engineering departments. I'm sorry, out of their fund, out of the county highway. They would like to set the salary at approximately $30,000 to $33,000 plus benefits, so they thought around $50,000 to $55,000 total would take care of that. Again, that would be fully funded out of the county highway fund. It would not be coming out of the general fund. Motion was made by Councilman Reese and seconded by Councilman Steele, with all members voting present to request before the full council. And I'll present that one next month. Is that right? Or was that the one that? It's just a transfer. So that one was, I knew there was one, there was a transfer. So that was a transfer. So I don't know if that's something that we could even take tonight so we can open the job and start moving forward with that, since it is out of the county highway fund. And they got more than enough money there to take care of that. Rick, is that something, or Ted, that we could take care of tonight if? Would it be a transfer?
Pure inter-fund transfer.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, within the
county highway fund.
County highway fund.
Yeah, it's not just appropriation.
Right.
With that, I'd make a motion to pass as presented, so that they go ahead and open that job and start the hiring process. Try to find
second.
Okay, we have a motion to approve by Councilman Emery, second by Councilman Vaughn. Councilman Emery, could you just remind me, what is the dollar amount? Where is it coming from? Where is it going to?
The transfer is going to be for $55,000. Is that right, John? Total?
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, Jessica, I want to make sure we get this right.
Good evening, Jessica Baston, County Engineer. What we're looking to do is move money within the highway fund from one line item to another line item. I had one opinion of the line items. Scott had a different opinion. If we need to resolve that tonight, I can. We'll go with his, but do we need the line items tonight? Or do you want me to come back next month with a transfer request?
Do you have the item to give it tonight?
I can. So what we would like to do, if this was doable, Rick, is to move from Fund 1169, Machinery and Equipment, into a new line item of a new line item under the Highway Fund, 1176, a new line item called Office Clerk, 11624. I'm sorry, that's an existing line item, 11624.
But are you going from one fund to the other fund?
That's what Scott's preference was. If that's not doable tonight, we can do something different.
Yeah, that one.
Okay, that's fine. We can then move it from, we'll go with my approach. I win.
You tried.
So let's go within 1176 is the highway fund. Let's move it from, let me get this right here. Actually, let's do this instead. Let's do it within Fund 1169, the Arterial Roads and Streets Fund. And can we do it into a new line item within that fund? Yes. So from Fund 44000, Machinery and Equipment, into a new account, a new line item, 11624, Office Clerk. Does that make sense?
And what was the amount?
We're targeting a salary of 30 to 33,000. And then in talking with the auditor's office, they said that the benefits, the worst case in the benefits would be around 25 to 28,000. So the max total loading would be around 55,000, give or take.
There's a completely separate line item for benefits as far as health insurance goes. Right. So I would just let that one ride out. There may be enough in there with turnover and other things that change. And so at the end of the year, if we need a little extra money over there, we just transfer it over.
Okay.
It may be fine.
Okay, so the salary would be 33,000.
Now, people will be tired of me talking about salary ordinances
Yeah,
tonight,
we need it.
but that is our key phrase. So that is something that we would have to that we would present next month. So even if we approve this transfer now, obviously that money can't be spent in that manner until the salary ordinance is passed.
But this will allow me to start the hiring process, is that correct?
Yeah, I mean, you
Okay.
can start that process, yeah.
What exactly is this position going to do?
So, what we're looking at doing, the highway department has a part-time administrative position that has not been filled. And it hasn't been filled it's been filled intermittently for the last couple of years. It's currently vacant, and what we are asking is, instead of filling it with another part-time person, is to increase it to a full-time role to help support both the highway department and engineering department. The engineering department in the past has been supported by the commissioner's secretary and by other part-time secretaries, but right now we currently don't have any administrative support other than what I can bum off of the highway department, for lack of a better way of saying it. And so doing this allows me to pursue additional grant funding because I'll have support to help with the writing of the grants and with the reporting of the grants. It'll help us with the ARPA process as far as the administration side of it. It'll help with processing claims, with payroll, and for the highway department, the benefit there is right now when our current administrative assistant is off for whatever reason, we use truck drivers to answer the phones. And it's very inefficient and not the best use of our resources. And
So what you're saying is we're going to have more paved roads?
I am doing my best to get you more paved roads.
Okay, so I believe we have a motion and a second for this transfer. Am I remembering correctly? Sorry, it was a long day today.
Yes.
Yes, okay. Is there any further discussion on this? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Okay, that motion passes. Thank you.
Thank you.
Can I add to that? I have some sort of a certification on grant writing. I attended a grant writing school, and I'll be able to help you if you
Great.
need some help.
I will definitely take you up on that. Thank you.
While we're discussing the highway department, there was another issue that was brought to me today, requesting a transfer in order to pay the bills that came out of the highway department funds for fuel and, I believe, was it just the fuel or was it fuel and labor?
Fuel and labor.
Okay. And so Rick and I are trying to think about it. That fund needs to be reimbursed. That fund really is not intended to be spent on those things. And so Rick and I were talking today about the potential of making a transfer within the council's budget. We could transfer from the sick payout line that we put money in there for into a line that we could then go ahead and get that paid, get them reimbursed and made whole. Then we could advertise next month for another possible way of adjusting some funds to reimburse our sick pay line out of that. So that is another potential transfer if a member of the council would want to entertain that.
Between funds?
Well, it would be staying within, the transfer would be within the county council's funds. So we should be able to do that, correct?
You could transfer
Right.
under 22,000 and pay that bill and then deal with.
Yeah. As far as reimbursing that fund from elsewhere, the council's fund from elsewhere, we wouldn't be able to do that tonight, but we could make the transfer, allow the council to then basically pay that bill so that the highway funds would, yeah.
How much is that?
And that's part of an audit thing. We need to get that money back over
Yeah.
there just so that we're in compliance.
We have annual reporting coming up due on that fund, and so it would be very helpful for us to have to sign off on the
How
report.
much is that for transfer?
The amount that I have, and Rick, correct me if if you have a different number, but it's $6,370.15.
That's through January.
So moved.
Okay.
Second.
Yes, that was through January.
Okay, so we have a motion by Councilman Emery, a second by Councilman Vaughn. Just making sure the auditor and our legal counsel don't come up with a question before I call on the vote. So we're still good to go after that conversation? Okay, just making sure. Is there any discussion on that? All in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed? That passes. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Seeing that, we...
Hold on.
Oh, yes, I'm sorry.
We did have Sheriff Scott Mellinger, which we covered his request tonight. We had Clerk Olivia Pratt, we covered her request tonight. The only other one we had was Joe Humphreys. Joe came in and presented a request. He's been having trouble filling, or actually, I'll kind of give you a little history first. He has trouble filling his part-time position because it was at $10.50 an hour. It was vacant for about 6 months. We had originally budgeted $19,000, approved $12,000 in his part-time budget. And so he had to bump that up to $12 an hour to even get someone to put an application in. Was finally able to do that. He's got 6 full-time people at $13.39 an hour and 1 part-time person at $12 an hour. What he's asking for is an increase in that, and he's going to present that at next month's meeting, correct, Joe? To come in and ask for an increase, and it was $6,100 in that part-time fund. What he's wanting to do is bring on another part-time position to help with the cleaning. What they're falling behind with is with the COVID cleaning that's going on in the courthouse. He's actually pulling staff. If they have a breakout of COVID in a particular office, he's got to pull his person from doing their normal duties to go in and sanitize and clean everything. And then they're running behind on what their duties are. So it just kind of seems to be a never-ending process. He's always behind. We had one of the staff in here kind of presented the case to us, and she presented a pretty good argument to get this done. With that being said, Joe's asking for $19,000 total on that line item. And again, he's about $6,100 short. And that will allow him to do 58 hours bi-weekly at $12 an hour to get that part-time person in to help sanitize and clean and stay on top of the cleaning as far as COVID cleaning goes throughout the county.
Councilman, is that a transfer or new money?
It'll be a new money request that he will present next month for $6,100 in that line item. And with that being said, Councilman Reese did make a motion, seconded by Councilman Steele, with all members voting present, to present to the full council in the form of this report. Again, he will be back next month to actually put in that official request. With that being said, that pretty much concluded the meeting. We concluded the meeting at approximately 7:05 p.m. Respectfully, Anthony Emery, Chairman.
Thank you. Are there any other committee reports?
Move to adjourn.
Hearing none, then
Were we supposed to approve that?
No, that was something that'll be presented at the next meeting.
Right. There was a planning board meeting a planning board meeting this morning that I attended, and we did have a conversation about a number of issues that we, basically zoning modifications and so forth, that in a limited capacity, Jeff Graham, did some research, and we were able to approve some of these zoning requests, but it was certainly a challenge knowing that we didn't have a planning director. So, but fortunately we're addressing that. I think that we're going to try to get that corrected as soon as possible.
Okay, thank you. All right, we have a motion to adjourn. Is there a second?
Mr. President, will you accept a public comment?
Sure.
Just a public compliment.
Come on up here, Mr.
Yes.
Please.
Just a public compliment to the highway crews during this most recent snowstorm. I mean, the roads were open to the point that we were able to get employees in. They were able to do their job. To the same for Joe and his crew to keeping the lots clear. I just think that that's worthy of public comment.
Yes, definitely. Thank you very much.
Reminder,
Mr. Senator, real quickly, could you, in the past, our council would be assigned certain, to different departments possibly? I want you to probably think about this probably for the next meeting, give us confirmation on it or something. But we do have some trouble with departments that probably need some council representation, so we can kind of pass along, kind of liaison between the council and that particular department. So if you would consider that next meeting, maybe do some assignments to some trouble. I won't say all of them, but we do have some areas that we probably need to make sure we have some type of council representation that kind of liaison between us.
Councilman Reese, would you, if you are aware of any specific departments, be more than happy those to me, and then we will maybe address those first.
I sure will, sir.
All right, thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, we had a motion to adjourn. Was there a second? And we have a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
We are adjourned. Thank you all for coming.
Thank you.
You might want to ask him on that.
Yeah.
Okay.
And we'll start with those two.
Hey, Ted.
I'll just come up here. What is?
I think what you were saying is like